17 August 1944, in northern France, close to Falaise. A GMC CCKW was parked forsaken on the road's edge, its canvas top ripped by shell fragments, the engine still retaining heat. The U.S. convoy it was part of had been intercepted by a Luftwaffe strafing attack, among the progressively infrequent instances of German planes being seen over France. German Army mechanics of the 276th Infantry Division moved forward with caution, inspecting the vehicle Americans nicknamed a Deuce-and-a-Half. "Fetch the Hauptfeldwebel," a mechanic shouted. "This one is undamaged." The findings over the following hour solidified doubts that had been mounting since the Normandy landings. Germany had already been defeated in this war, not in combat, but within the manufacturing plants of Detroit. The vehicle was enormous relative to German models, with a 2.5-ton listed capacity. It made the standard Opel Blitz look small, yet the mechanics right away observed something surprising. It was not complex. The 6-cylinder motor was positioned for easy access, its components clearly marked in English. A mechanic accessed the toolbox attached to the running board. Within it were common wrenches, pliers, and an instruction book printed on high-grade paper, featuring detailed diagrams. "Observe this," the Hauptfeldwebel remarked, paging through the booklet. "It is all explained visually. Even a child could understand these directions." They had taken U.S. trucks previously, but none had been inspected so completely. The GMC had markings identifying it as a 1943 model CCKW 353, the extended wheelbase variant. Serial number stamps revealed it was one of many thousands constructed that year at the Pontiac facility, thousands from just one plant. The initial technical review uncovered the design philosophy. The GMC 270 motor generated 104 horsepower from 269 cubic inches, which was unimpressive by German metrics. However, the mechanic saw instantly that high performance was not the objective. All the bolts were a uniform size. Every nut was removable with an identical wrench. The spark plugs were located for simple access. The oil filter was replaceable without any tools. "This is made for imbeciles," one mechanic mumbled. The Hauptfeldwebel corrected him. "No. It is engineered for a 1,000,000-man army where the majority are not mechanics. This is ingenious." He was correct. The GMC was not designed for perfection. It was designed for the American draftee force, where Iowa farmhands and Pennsylvania mill workers became combat drivers after brief instruction. Each part was chosen based on availability and simple replacement. Nothing was specialized. Nothing demanded expert knowledge. They inspected the 6-wheel drive mechanism. A basic transfer case activated the front axle using one lever. By contrast, their Opel Blitz trucks were only rear-wheel drive, fighting continuously in the French mud and needing cautious operation to prevent being mired. This U.S. truck could force its way through ground that would halt German vehicles. The suspension utilized simple leaf springs, rough but indestructible. The Hauptfeldwebel recalled the complex torsion bar suspension on the Opel, elegant engineering that demanded specialized tools for repair. These leaf springs could be pounded flat with a stone if needed. The most disturbing part was what the figures showed. Impressed on the frame was Pontiac Plant Number 1. The serial number signified this truck was one of roughly 150,000 constructed in 1943 by itself. A single plant. A single year. More trucks than Germany manufactured across all types together. One mechanic calculated. "If one U.S. factory makes this quantity of trucks, how many factories do they possess?" The reply was dozens. GMC, Chevrolet, Studebaker, International Harvester, Dodge, Ford, all manufacturing comparable vehicles to uniform military standards, all with swappable components. That night, the unit's supply officer participated in the inspection. He was formerly employed at the Opel factory in Brandenburg, possessing a deep grasp of vehicle production. "We are viewing this incorrectly," he stated. "We perceive a basic truck, but this symbolizes a complete production doctrine we cannot equal." He clarified what the GMC signified about American manufacturing. The pressed steel body sections were rough, yet they could be made in huge volumes by any stamping facility. The timber cargo bed utilized common lumber available from any sawmill. The canvas cover was standard textile. Nothing was specialized. Everything was plentiful. "Observe the chassis," he went on, indicating the ladder frame. "Straight channel steel fused by welding. Any structural steel facility could make these. Contrast that with our Opel, featuring precisely shaped frame rails that need special dies." The Americans had engineered for their advantage. Enormous industrial capability. The GMC was not better than the Opel Blitz in terms of design grace, but it was better in the one measure that counted: manufacturability. The supply officer's analysis became grimmer. In 1943, we manufactured around 27,000 Opel Blitz trucks. The Americans likely constructed 20 times that figure of just these GMC trucks. And that is only one truck model from a single producer. He was underestimating. U.S. plants would manufacture over 562,000 CCKW trucks throughout the war. Germany's full wartime output of the Opel Blitz, the core of Wehrmacht supply, reached maybe 100,000 units, the majority being the Forward 2 variant, which did not have the GMC's all-wheel drive function. In the following week, the unit utilized the captured GMC for supply transport. It revolutionized their abilities. While their Opel trucks battled through muddy farm tracks, the GMC just pushed through. When burdened past its listed limit, a constant occurrence, it kept operating. The six-wheel drive gave traction their rear-wheel drive models could not equal. A supply sergeant who operated it every day gave his evaluation. "This truck is dependable in a manner our vehicles are not. It isn't that it is constructed better. It is that it is built anticipating mistreatment. They engineered it knowing troops would overburden it, skip maintenance, and operate it as if trying to wreck it." That was the realization. U.S. engineers had created the GMC for war's reality, not its theory. They presumed drivers would have minimal training, servicing would be postponed, and operational environments would be dreadful. Thus, they constructed it to match: basic, durable, tolerant. On 25th of August 1944, the very day the Red Ball Express commenced its work, the 276th Infantry Division got instructions to pull back to the east. They saw an event that finalized their understanding of U.S. logistics. A U.S. convoy traveled on an adjacent road. Not a tactical maneuver, but a supply convoy. The observing Germans tallied vehicles as they moved by. After 30 minutes, they ceased counting. Vehicle after vehicle after vehicle, extending to the skyline. GMC CCKW trucks were dominant, all uniform, all laden with provisions, all advancing with mechanical accuracy toward the battle line. "Where are their horses?" a new soldier inquired, truly perplexed. The Hauptfeldwebel understood the young man had never witnessed a completely motorized military. Within the Wehrmacht, 80% of supply transport depended on horses. Their single division needed more than 5,000 horses for moving materiel. Those animals required feed, water, recuperation, and medical attention. They could cover maybe 30 kilometers daily in favorable weather. They perished in the thousands during winter. U.S. divisions possessed no horses. They possessed trucks. Thousands of trucks, capable of traveling hundreds of kilometers a day, needed no fodder, did not tire, and did not die from freezing. The supply officer made further calculations that evening. Every U.S. division has about 2,000 trucks. They possess 40 divisions in France. That is 80,000 trucks for combat support, excluding the supply organizations. We possess 3 million horses in total on all fronts and perhaps 100,000 trucks. Someone posed the predictable question: how are they able to manufacture so many vehicles? The reply was difficult to voice. U.S. automotive factories were created for mass manufacturing well before the conflict. Ford's assembly process, GM's production methods. When war arrived, they just shifted civilian manufacturing to military requirements. The identical plants that made Chevrolet sedans made GMC trucks. The identical laborers who put together Oldsmobiles put together military vehicles. The changeover was smooth, as the production doctrine was the same: standardization, interchangeability, mass manufacturing. Germany possessed superb engineers, but was missing this production framework. The Opel facility in Brandenburg, even at maximum output, could not equal one U.S. automotive center, and America possessed scores of such centers. By September 1944, the unit had seized 3 additional GMC trucks and a Dodge WC-63. The mechanics observed something extraordinary. Components were swappable not only between GMC trucks, but also between separate producers. A GMC carburetor suited the Dodge. Electrical parts were standardized. Even the tires were a uniform size. They have standardized their whole vehicle inventory, the supply officer clarified. A single list of specifications, numerous producers. It signifies any mechanic can repair any truck. Any parts warehouse can provision any vehicle. Their supply system is unified in a manner ours has never achieved. The Wehrmacht utilized vehicles from scores of makers with non-compatible parts. A mechanic skilled with an Opel could not automatically repair a Buessing or a Mercedes. Parts depots needed to carry components for hundreds of vehicle models. It was a supply catastrophe. On the 30 October 1944, the division's leftover vehicles were immobilized when fuel deliveries did not appear. The horses could graze, but the trucks remained stationary. Concurrently, U.S. operations proceeded without interruption because their supply chain, founded on thousands of GMC trucks, dependably brought fuel to frontline units. The mechanics used their forced downtime to study the seized U.S. trucks. One offered a comment that solidified their comprehension. "We engineered our vehicles to be excellent. They engineered theirs to be adequate, but in massive quantities. In total war, that succeeds." The Hauptfeldwebel composed a thorough technical summary on the GMC CCKW. It recorded every facet: the standardized parts, the easy servicing methods, the rugged build that traded refinement for resilience. The summary observed that although the Opel Blitz was better than the GMC in fuel economy and agility, these benefits were irrelevant when Germany made 1 truck for every 5 or 6 U.S. trucks. The summary finished: "American vehicle output signifies industrial power we cannot equal. Their production doctrine favors volume and standardization above singular vehicle excellence." In prolonged conflict, this method has shown itself devastatingly successful. Comparable summaries were inundating Wehrmacht command from all fronts. German intelligence experts gathered U.S. production data with rising dread. The figures were astounding. U.S. factories manufactured 2.4 million military trucks during the conflict. Germany, Italy, and Japan together could not get near that sum. December 1944 delivered the Ardennes Offensive, Hitler's final risk in the West. The operation's supply strategy depended significantly on seizing U.S. fuel stores, as Germany was short of fuel to maintain the attack. German troops were instructed to utilize captured U.S. vehicles whenever feasible, as German supply lines could not match the speed. The irony was harsh. Germany's final large-scale attack relied on seizing the specific vehicles and fuel that represented why Germany was failing. The 276th Infantry Division joined the offensive, employing their assortment of captured U.S. trucks with their small number of surviving Opel vehicles. When the attack faltered, it was not chiefly due to U.S. opposition, though it was intense, but because German supply systems failed. Panzer units left tanks when fuel trucks failed to arrive. Infantry groups fell back on horse-pulled wagons as motorized vehicles had failed. Concurrently, U.S. supply activities proceeded with mechanical precision. The Red Ball Express concluded in November, yet U.S. logistics now functioned from Antwerp, Brussels, and Cherbourg. Trucks transported materiel on pathways made more effective as engineers reconstructed French infrastructure. The U.S. Army was a mechanism fueled by industry working on a scale Germany had never reached. In January 1945, as the Ardennes attack collapsed and German troops fell back, the seized GMC trucks were invaluable. They continued to run. The Opel trucks, exposed to the identical severe environment, had largely failed. The distinction was not just upkeep, it was engineering philosophy. The GMC was made to take abuse. The Opel was constructed to German ideals of accuracy that could not endure wartime mistreatment. By March 1945, the 276th Infantry Division was protecting locations in the Rhineland. U.S. forces had traversed the Rhine in massive force. The mechanics viewed U.S. supply activities with technical respect, mixed with hopelessness. They have constructed a military that functions on logistics, and they have constructed logistics that are unstoppable, the Hauptfeldwebel noted. Our military was created presuming we would engage in brief conflicts where tactical skill would trump material shortfalls. We did not anticipate this. Years of continuous battle against a foe that manufactures equipment more rapidly than we can demolish it. The division capitulated on 18th April 1945. They became captives, moved to processing locations in U.S. GMC trucks. The trip offered a concluding lesson in American industrial power. At the processing facility near Koblenz, prisoners observed hundreds of U.S. trucks in vehicle depots. Young U.S. soldiers maintained them with an effortless skill that was unattainable in the Wehrmacht. Components were plentiful. Implements were easily accessible. Service manuals were so straightforward that troops with little training could execute complex fixes. A captured mechanic conversed with an American motor sergeant who was unexpectedly amiable considering the situation. "Your mechanics? Hell, we require mechanics. Can you repair these?" The sergeant pointed at the GMC trucks. "Yes, we have serviced several captured ones." "Good. The war is finished for you, but these trucks still require upkeep. I can have you assigned to the vehicle pool. It's preferable to waiting behind wire." In the subsequent weeks, German mechanics labored beside U.S. soldiers, servicing the exact vehicles that assisted in their defeat. The American sergeant detailed the upkeep philosophy with open frankness. "We engineer everything for quickness. Fast servicing, interchangeable parts, easy steps. See this motor? A full rebuild can be finished by a two-person crew in 8 hours with field equipment. Attempt that on one of your trucks." The German mechanic admitted the reality. An Opel engine rebuild demands factory settings and special tools. We engineered for precision. You engineered for practicality. Precisely. In peacetime, your method likely results in superior vehicles. In war, our method results in vehicles that keep forces mobile. How many of these GMC trucks do you guess we constructed? "I am not sure. Hundreds of thousands?" "More than 500,000 of only this type. Then add the Dodges, the Studebakers, the Internationals, millions of trucks in all. That is what decided the war. Not superior equipment, but more equipment than you could possibly destroy." The American added, "You know what is humorous? These trucks are not that complex. We utilized commercial truck engineering, minimally altered for military application. The motors are a commercial design, the transmissions, commercial. We simply made it durable and manufactured it in enormous volumes." This was the insight German mechanics fully internalized. America had triumphed through its manufacturing doctrine as much as its industrial might. They engineered for mass volume from the beginning, standardized relentlessly, favored dependability over complexity, and created supply lines capable of supporting operations endlessly. The mechanics passed months in POW camps, many laboring in U.S. motor pools. They observed the scope of American logistics every day. Convoys with hundreds of trucks transporting materiel throughout occupied Germany. Repair facilities with more spare components than whole German divisions had ever owned. Production methods so effective that damaged vehicles were frequently replaced instead of fixed, as new vehicles came faster than repairs could be finished. In late 1945, as repatriation started, German mechanics went back to a ruined homeland. Cities lay in ruins. Factories were demolished. Yet American vehicles were ubiquitous. GMC trucks transporting rebuilding supplies, jeeps conveying occupation troops, equipment assisting the start of German reconstruction. The Hauptfeldwebel, now merely a civilian, secured employment at a reconstruction yard in Frankfurt. His familiarity with U.S. vehicles made him an asset. One day, instructing young Germans in vehicle repair, he mused on the war's lessons. Before the conflict, we trusted German engineering was supreme, that quality would defeat quantity. We were mistaken. The Americans grasped modern industrial conflict more thoroughly than we. They constructed sufficient equipment in massive volumes. They standardized without mercy. They engineered for the military they possessed, millions of common men, not the military we desired, elite experts. He gestured toward the GMC trucks in the depot. These trucks are not engineering marvels, but they won the conflict because they numbered in the hundreds of thousands. They all utilized identical components. Any soldier could operate them, and any mechanic could repair them. That was the brilliance, not in the specific vehicles, but in the infrastructure that manufactured them. By 1947, the Marshall Plan was providing assistance to Germany, moved chiefly by American trucks. German mechanics serviced these vehicles, using knowledge gained from years of observation and practice. As German industry started to rebuild, many adopted U.S. production principles: standardization, part commonality, design for manufacturing. The GMC CCKW stayed in U.S. service into the 1960s, proof of its durable design. Many continued service longer in Allied forces. The Opel Blitz, though a superb vehicle, had turned into an emblem of Germany's industrial deficiencies in the war. In the following decades, German carmakers combined German engineering accuracy with U.S. mass manufacturing methods. Firms like Mercedes-Benz, BMW, and the restored Volkswagen produced vehicles mixing both doctrines: precision engineering intended for effective mass manufacturing. Ex-Wehrmacht mechanics, having serviced both German and U.S. vehicles in the war, turned into valued advisors for the reconstructing German industry. They comprehended both methods and could explain why the U.S. system was more successful in a protracted conflict. One such advisor, in a 1967 discussion with an automotive industry journal, encapsulated the lesson. The GMC truck showed us that in modern conflict, perfection is the foe of good enough. Germany created elegant vehicles that were overly complex to manufacture in required numbers and too advanced for field repair. America created sufficient vehicles that could be made by the millions and serviced by anyone. We were defeated not because our engineers were worse, but because we failed to grasp what industrial conflict demanded. The piece featured a picture of a refurbished GMC CCKW at a car museum. The text stated, "American GMC CCKW Deuce-and-a-Half truck, over 560,000 manufactured 1941 to 1945. These trucks were the core of the Red Ball Express and symbolized the U.S. industrial doctrine that defeated Axis nations via mass manufacturing and standardization." Next to it, for contrast, was a restored Opel Blitz. The text, "German Opel Blitz, 3-ton truck. Roughly 100,000 manufactured 1937 to 1944. Superb vehicle design hindered by constrained production capability and the absence of four-wheel drive in the majority of models." The visual contrast conveyed the narrative perfectly. Both were well-engineered trucks, yet one was available in massive volumes with uniform parts, easy upkeep, and a supply system that could support armies endlessly. The other was a high-grade item made in inadequate numbers by a manufacturing base unable to rival American production power. The mechanics who inspected that initial, captured GMC in August 1944, had grasped instantly what it signified. They had witnessed the future and Germany's past. U.S. industrial doctrine, cultivated in Detroit's car factories and honed over decades of mass manufacturing, had demonstrated itself as the better method for modern conflict. The GMC CCKW was not merely a truck. It was an instructor of difficult lessons regarding industrial conflict, regarding design doctrine, and regarding why volume possesses a quality of its own. For German mechanics who serviced these vehicles as captives and subsequently as civilians reconstructing their nation, those lessons formed their remaining lives and affected German production for generations. The narrative of Wehrmacht mechanics and the GMC truck is, in the end, about education through loss. They had trusted in German supremacy, in accuracy over volume, in engineering excellence over mass manufacturing. U.S. trucks, basic, plentiful, dependable, showed them the contrary. That understanding, agonizing to gain, proved priceless in rebuilding, aiding Germany's transformation from a beaten foe to a wealthy ally founded on insights gained from thousands of U.S. trucks that had moved across European battlegrounds. The mechanics who operated captured GMC trucks conceded they had never possessed vehicles comparable, not due to better engineering, but due to a manufacturing doctrine Germany had never grasped. That concession, truthful and humbling, signified the start of the wisdom that reconstructed a nation.